I'm very honored and privileged to introduce to you the keynote speaker, Mr. Ronn. He is the President and CEO of the Cleveland Foundation. You all know about the Cleveland Foundation. The Cleveland Foundation is the oldest community foundation in the country, 108 years old. 108 years old. It's one of the richest in the country. It has a budget of $3.2 billion. And the Cleveland Foundation is behind every Renaissance effort in the city that you lived through in the last 30, 40 years. They put at least $125 million annually into city programs and projects. From Uptown to Midtown, to Buckeye, to near West Side, to Public Square, the renovation of Public Square. They're involved in the manpower and education as well. They have major programs for schools, supporting the underprivileged schools. Transformation School program that they supported led to an increased passing rate in the schools, the high schools, from 30% to 80%. They supported every major civic organization in the city, from the Global Cleveland, Council on World Affairs, and many other civic organizations and art organizations. You have their support for the orchestra, for the medical school, for Playhouse Square when it was saved from demolition and becoming a parking lot in Cleveland. They've been catalysts behind the expansion of Metro Park, and they were the biggest supporter of Cleveland Cultural Gardens Federation. I can go on and on to mention what they did in the city and in the county and near Northeast Ohio. So without further ado, and with great privilege, I introduce to you Mr. Ronn.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
How are you?
Well.
Good, 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 good. I'd like to begin by thanking my very dear friend, Dr. Curry, although I don't view him as a friend, I think of him as my brother, for the kind introduction. I'm honored to deliver this evening's keynote remarks, and I'm so pleased that we're finally able to gather to celebrate the Gardens Gala this year after several postponements due to the pandemic. I want to thank the board and leadership of the Cleveland Cultural Gardens, including board chair Dr. Curry and executive director Lori Ashik, for their work year-round to promote and sustain the gardens for the benefit of our community. I'd like to also acknowledge the many volunteers and community members who've worked tirelessly to establish new gardens and to care for the existing gardens. Your stewardship has made this Cleveland landmark what it is today. From the 3 original gardens created in the early 20th century to the 33 gardens along East Boulevard and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard today, the Cleveland Cultural Gardens have grown over the decades to reflect the various communities of people who have migrated and immigrated to our city, as well as those who are indigenous to this land. The Gardens Parkway is truly one of the most beautiful stretches in Greater Cleveland, whether you're traveling by car, by bike, or by foot. I've lived in and visited cities around the world, and many of them have beautiful public gardens. However, there are none quite like the Cleveland Cultural Gardens, which blend the natural beauty and green space with the celebration of global heritage and history, which maybe we need now more than ever. The Cleveland Foundation has proudly supported the Cultural Gardens over the years because we understand their value to the city and the importance of connecting Cleveland to the international community. The gardens promote culture, learning, and diversity, 3 elements that are necessary not only for a vibrant city, but I think for social justice. First, I'd like to say a few words about the garden's educational value. Learning happens in classrooms, but it also happens out in the community. To visit the cultural gardens is to immerse yourself in the histories and stories of countries around the world. Even a casual walk through the gardens can be a learning experience about native plants, trees, as well as the historical figures and cultural contributions from so many countries. The Cultural Gardens' is open and accessible location organically invites residents and visitors to explore, but also know that intentional programming can enhance community value of parks and gardens. Yes. But we also know that intentional programming can enhance the community value of parks and gardens. In recent years, the Cleveland Cultural Gardens Federation has worked to expand educational opportunities with self-guided tours as well as walking tours in partnership with Airbnb and Destination Cleveland. The completion of the Centennial Peace Plaza, which the Cleveland Foundation and many others supported, in our case with a grant in 2017, has expanded space for educational events and programs in the gardens, including naturalization ceremonies, community conversations, and so much more. In addition to their educational value, the gardens are an important part of our city's arts and cultural infrastructure. During a visit to the gardens on any day, you can be inspired by artists and creative visionaries from around the world. Many of the gardens, as you know, pay homage to artists from their countries with sculptures or inscriptions recognizing notable poets, authors, visual and performing artists, and others. A number of gardens also feature the work of our local artists and architects who designed or created sculptures, monuments, or landscape elements. In these gardens, Cleveland's local talent and creativity is in conversation with the cultures of the world. It's no secret that the COVID-19 pandemic hit the arts and cultural sector in Cleveland and elsewhere particularly hard. At the same time, many of us turn to art for solace and connection during such a challenging and isolating time. Nature and outdoor spaces also became a refuge for many of us during the pandemic. As our local arts and culture sector continues its recovery, it's important that we continue to bring art and performance into non-traditional spaces, especially parks and public green spaces across our community. The Cultural Gardens are doing this with events and programming like the World on Stage series that brings music and dance performances from around the globe into the gardens. Art has the power to connect us on a human level, and in this way, it can serve as an envoy to cultures and traditions that are different from our own. Vibrant communities are diverse communities, and the gardens celebrate the many countries of origin, ethnicities, and cultures that have built the city of Cleveland as we know it today. I know many of us in this room tonight have our own migration and immigration stories. In my case, my grandfather came to this country from the Ukraine in 1919, and my grandmother from Poland. Some have recent immigration stories, and some stretch back generations. We've brought these stories and cultures with us to Cleveland, where together we're shaping the present and the future of our shared home. The individual gardens, each designed with its own perspective and cultural lens and charm, together create a magnificent mosaic of global diversity that benefits our entire community. The gardens allow greater Clevelanders and visitors alike to connect with their heritage and the heritage of others. In the gardens, you can find symbols of different world religions and political ideologies, as well as tributes to patriots and national leaders from various homelands. Geopolitical tensions and conflicts are constant in our world, but for more than a century, the Cleveland Cultural Gardens have created a space where peaceful coexistence and mutual understanding and respect are possible. Today, the gardens are as vital to our community as ever, and they continue to grow and expand with new garden dedications and design plans. As we imagine the future of the gardens, I know they will continue to be a space that connects our community across generations and cultures. Everyone in this room tonight is helping to make that possible. On behalf of the Cleveland Foundation, I want to thank you for your work to make Greater Cleveland a more vibrant and globally connected community. It's an honor and pleasure to be with you tonight.